And that's why I had mayonnaise all over my toes.
Yeah, good luck selling that.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. This, the 60th episode of Drunk Doctor Who podcast, discussing the 60th serial of Drunk Doctor Who.
Yep.
I'm
Hatter, this is Holden, and together we're Hatter and Holden.
Hey! And this week we're drinking...
Well, I'm drinking Long Island iced tea, Captain Morgan, and you?
Jack and Coke. It's oil fire and Coke. I've also been drinking twisted tea.
True. And I was having a good bit of that oil fire earlier.
A few fingers.
Earlier. But I didn't want to drink all of his oil fire.
You're about 5 fingers deep. And some water. Good old H2O. Stay hydrated at home if you're drinking along with us.
So, this week it's Day of the Daleks. Like we said, the 60th serial.
Boy, I wonder who the antagonists are.
Yeah, the Daleks. Alright, it aired, today is November 23rd, 2020. These episodes, the 4 episodes, aired from January 1st, 1972.
I'm Vanna White. We have 2 E's.
Alright, but January 1st is the first episode, but it wasn't considered a New Year's special. That's only the modern stuff. Until January 22nd, 3 weeks later, 1972. The companions were Joe Grant, the Brigadier, Sergeant Benton, the antagonists were the Daleks, of course. Well, and the Ogrons.
Ogrons. I mean, they're just doing what they're told.
Well, the Ogrons and the Quislings.
The submissive, the controller.
Yeah, the submissive humans, the Quislings. Alright, look up that word if you don't know it. It's a good word. Named after a guy actually named Quisling. No, seriously, it was. Much like Borking comes after Robert Bork. Quisling comes after a man named Quisling. Or Quiz. I forget.
Somewhere there's a John out there who was so bad they decided to start calling toilets Johns.
That's actually true.
King John?
No, I believe Prince John.
Prince John.
Yeah, but to be fair, that's actually true.
Did you say what you're drinking yet?
Yeah. I'm doing Captain Morgan Long Island iced tea. And I had some of it. I had a good 2 shots and 4 fingers worth of your oil fire.
4.5 at least. It's so good.
It's not quite as good as Magma Flame.
It's pretty good though. It's super smooth, chocolatey, mixes with anything, goes down like nothing. Like I like shooting Fireball, but Fireball's like cinnamon whiskey. It's spicy. Magma Flame is the higher quality tier of cinnamon whiskey without all the, like, what would you call it, syrupiness?
Syrupy, sugary
and then
sweetness.
Oil Fire is just like this super smooth, like, chocolatey. They mix it with creme liqueur. Not creme liqueur, just like liqueur and whiskey. It's super smooth.
It's more of a...
I highly recommend it.
Smoky whiskey, yeah.
It's chocolatey liqueur whiskey smoke.
Alright, sure.
So not only have we watched the 60th serial, we also watched
An Adventure in Space
Space and Time, the docudrama.
Of the First Doctor.
So we'll be covering the 60th serial, the docudrama, and then I think we have a season 5 to vote on
we choose
our favorite episodes. So this might be a loaded podcast with a couple of loaded hosts.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, the serial is only 4 episodes, which is great. Like
Good Lord, what all is in it? Rum, whiskey, gin, vodka, triple sec liqueur. With natural flavors and caramel coloring.
Yeah, it's a Long Island iced tea.
That's a lot of liquors in there.
Yes, which is why it packs more of a punch than it's what 60 proof would indicate.
You would have you have regular 60 proof alcohol. It's so. Then you have like mixed 60 proof, and it hits different.
Yeah, like I said, this packs more of a punch than normal 60 proof.
Something about mixing different alcohols just gets you way more over the hill than you would normally be.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it.
Alright, so anyway, okay. So, apparently, back to our cereal, back at the ranch.
Back at the ranch.
The Doctor and Joe are working on the dematerialization circuit for the TARDIS. And suddenly another Doctor and Joe appeared in the doorway.
Right, I thought the TARDIS had been unlocked from its
moorings.
Yeah, its control circuit. The Doctor had full reign, but apparently it was only traveling from remote control, so he still doesn't have...
The High Council of the Time Lords sent the Doctor specifically to that planet and rice cereal.
Yeah. So
to defuse the ultimate weapon.
Mm-hmm. He still doesn't have full control over his TARDIS like I thought he did.
Right.
Yeah. He hasn't been released from his confinings to Earth.
Not yet. It's part of an issue about budget, you know?
Right.
Right. So, anyway, Joe and the Doctor are working on the dematerialization circuit for the TARDIS, and then they suddenly appear in the doorway, and the Doctor's like, "Hey, okay, it's you, and it's me, and you'll figure this out later, and it'll make sense to you later, don't worry about it."
It never makes sense.
And they disappear. And they never, ever, ever explain it in the entire serial. And they never explain it later.
Right.
Because they never come back to this point.
They're wearing the same clothes, you know. You would figure it's the same serial, just like a different time.
In the serial, and it doesn't happen.
But it doesn't, which leads you down to either two conclusions. Because they make a hard cut, and then later they're, you know, somewhere else on the base discussing something else. So you can either conclude that maybe that temporal lapse happened while they were working on the TARDIS, or it was an alternate time dimension. So it's like them, but in an alternate dimension, also working on their TARDIS.
It's possible.
Being face to face.
Yeah.
And we don't get a conclusive answer of...
At all.
We still don't really know how their timeline works, whether it's alternate dimensions and timelines meeting up with each other, or this like one linear timeline dimension that has back loops and alternate.
But the whole point
branches.
is that they're setting up the foundation for the time scopes and possibilities for later in the serial.
Right, all of which I'm very confused.
It's okay, that's why I'm here.
And have several questions.
Okay, so anyway, the Brigadier shows up and says, "Hey, alright, we've got Sir Reginald," what's his name? Sir Reginald?
Reginald, yeah. That's what I wrote
What's
down.
his last
Sir
name?
Reginald. Reginald's his last name. His first name was like Stanley or something.
No, I think Reginald's his first name.
Oh.
I don't remember his last name.
Is S something, Stanley.
Okay. So anyway,
Stanley, Reginald.
So anyway, the whole crux of the matter is that there's this peace conference to prevent the world from going to a third world war. There have already been a whole bunch of troops amassed on the Chinese-Russian border, which they actually have two borders, China and Russia. One on the western side of Mongolia, a smaller one, and there's Mongolia, and then a much larger one on the eastern side of Mongolia. Because somehow Mongolia has managed to not be annexed by either Russia or China. I mean, it's like really crappy terrain, you know? Hardy people. They've resisted Russia and China.
The two, like, huge, you know, first world powers.
No. Second world powers.
You have this little Mongolia in between them.
Decent size, actually, but yeah.
What, is Mongolia like a big vacation site?
No, nobody goes to Mongolia.
I want to go to Mongolia.
I do too, but the Uller, their capital, I think it's called Uller or something.
Mongolia.
Yeah, you go there as a tourist. You stay in a
yurt with Sherpas. Isn't that like around where
like
Mount Everest is?
No, Mount Everest is between Nepal
and China.
Yeah,
In China. So that's more northwest China? Because Mongolia is like northeast China?
Mongolia is northwest.
Oh, okay.
Nepal is southwest.
Oh. Okay. So it's cold in Mongolia.
Friggin' A, yeah. It's cold in Mongolia. You remember the scene in Mongolia in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, cold.
Where she has
bloody
the bar
cold. Yes.
one other person.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
really
like a great movie. We saw that in theaters.
Yes, love Raiders of the Lost Ark.
If you have the opportunity to watch any Indiana Jones films,
Except
especially Raiders of the Lost Ark, except for the Crystal Skull,
Yeah.
we highly recommend it.
Right. And this is a good time to do it because movie theaters are
showing a lot of
old films right now because of the stupid Wuhan coronavirus.
Right. What else do we watch?
We saw The Fall.
What else did we watch on the big screen?
You remember The Fall, right?
What was that? Remind me of The Fall.
The Fall? The one with the beautiful cinematography filmed in all those countries where the stuntman fell and broke his legs.
The stuntman movie.
And we wanted to...
So we watched that. That was at the Draft House, though. We watched two of them at Cinemark. One was Indiana Jones. What was the other one? I remember The Fall. Fall's a good movie.
Yeah, that was at Alamo Draft House. I don't remember the other movie.
We watched Ghostbusters. We watched Ghostbusters.
Yeah, Ghostbusters is good.
Ghostbusters also amazing on the big screen.
True.
Ghostbusters.
All right, back to our
episode 1.
So apparently there's a big peace conference with Sir Reginald, and he's trying to stop World War III. There's fighting breaking out between Russia and China, which actually in the 70s, 1972, makes sense because they had a falling out in the 60s. They were bestest buddies until they had a falling out in the 60s between the Stalinist and Maoist versions of communism. Okay, and seriously, the Chinese got the technology for nuclear bombs. The Russians shredded all their documents, but the Chinese had so much manpower they couldn't figure out nuclear weapons. But they took the shredded materials and they pieced them together until they figured out all of they got them all pieced together and they translated them. That's how they get the nuclear bomb.
There's this great mission in Call of Duty Black Ops, if you've ever played that game.
Nope.
Where they're going after nuclear weapons. And it's a great video game. Great campaign. A lot of twists. Cold War stuff, Cuban War, missile crisis, nuclear weapons.
Okay, we need to do this for him. 3 sheets to the wind. Okay.
We could.
You know that expression, right?
We could form 3 sheets to the wind.
No.
What?
It means really wasted. 3 sheets to the wind. So, like a ship would put all through its mass in the wind and be going really fast.
Yeah.
And that's 3 sheets to the wind. So it became a term for really, really drunk or really, really going there.
Okay.
3 sheets to the wind.
Which is what we are?
It's where we're going at this rate.
I'll be, a sheet and a half, 2 sheets.
2 sheets? Yeah, I'm getting about 2.5 to 3. All right. Anyway. I mean, I've had some of your oil fire.
My goal is to get you drunk. I'm just along for the ride.
Well, that's fine because I live here. But if you're too drunk, remember we have a guest room.
Thank you.
And that's good.
Good. I've taken you
anytime.
More than once on that.
Any day of the week, you are welcome. Okay. So this peace conference is going to go off. And Sir Reginald is in his study. And some figure comes in through the French windows and tries to assassinate him.
Guerrilla warfare garb, futuristic weapon.
Yeah. Just as he's about to kill him, the guy disappears. Sir Reginald goes
because Miss Pageant walks in. His assistant.
Paget.
Yeah, Miss Paget.
Paget.
Yeah.
There's no N. Paget.
Paget.
Yeah. So, no, but she walks in after he screams.
Mm-hmm. Because he screams and then the figure disappears.
Right. He screams because he's on the ground, the figure's about to execute him, and then the figure disappears like a ghost. Miss Paget, who is a secretary, walks in and he goes, there was a ghost here, he's going to kill me. And so she gets on the horn to unit to the Brigadier. Yay, Brigadier.
To the Brigadier. Benton Yates.
Benton,
also,
not Yates.
Not Yates. Yeah,
not
Yates is a Hanyak.
Yates is a Hanyak.
Privilege of rank.
True. And that is actually a thing.
Taking advantage, yeah.
So
not a moral thing.
But it is
but it's a thing.
Privilege of rank is the thing. So, they get on to the Brigadier. The Brigadier says, well, I'll send my best man over, which of course means the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor's like, I don't want to go, I don't want to hear about this. And then he hears about ghosts. And suddenly the doctor's there.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor goes there with Liz, probably with Joe. Wow. Elizabeth Shaw, sorry. With Joe. And they're like, well...
What about Elizabeth Shaw?
Huh?
What?
So Reginald goes to China to Peking, which is actually Beijing, but the British still call it by the old name Peking, well into the 80s or 90s, which is what they're doing here, but it's been Beijing since
that has
late
to do
60s.
With England's imperialistic control, and they have Hong Kong, and then they're leasing back
they had
all
Hong Kong till 98.
They're leasing back these countries, but under,
it was traditionally
clauses.
Peking for for centuries, and the communist Chinese changed it to Beijing, and that's fine. But many countries took a while to switch it over.
Do we know why they changed it to Beijing?
Well, yeah, because they're destroying history.
Okay,
when you have a revolution and you change everything, you literally change everything. Mm-hmm. And in China, they burned down all of the old monuments. Mm-hmm. They destroyed everything to the old religions. They burned down so many things. They took everyone with learning, every doctor, every scientist, and they either killed them or made them labor workers, like in the fields of the farms. They burned so many books and they destroyed so much knowledge. It was really sad.
That is sad. It's a shame. I guess I don't know a whole lot about the whole
Cultural Revolution.
Yeah.
The only thing that survived was the Forbidden City in Beijing. Mm-hmm. And I've been there and it's fantastic. But it's the only thing that survived. The same way with the Russian Revolution, the only thing that survived was the Summer Palace, the Hermitage. Everything else was destroyed. I mean, that's just the way of communists, of Marxism.
So before communism, they had an imperialistic government structure?
China
and Russia.
Okay, China was ruled by the Tsars, and it was fairly monastic, ruled by a monarch / empiric, ruled by an
So
emperor.
Tsars are from Russia. Is it like a Russian control over China before they...
No. Okay, in Russia there were the Tsars, and their name derives from Caesar, from an emperor.
Right.
And they were basically emperors. And the Tsars ruled Russia for a couple of centuries. And then they were deposed during the Russian Revolution of 1917, 1918, when the communists took over.
Right.
In China was ruled by emperors for centuries and centuries and centuries, like 1,000 or 2,000 years.
But China wasn't like one, government. It was like split up into different.
At certain times it was
regions.
smaller portions. They had the Three Kingdoms period where there were 3 different kingdoms.
And then,
but eventually, like Italy or Germany, it was unified into one China. Same thing. Italy was a whole bunch of city-states unified into one Italy. Germany, same thing, unified into one Germany. China eventually unified into one China under one emperor, and then the emperor was deposed, and it became a republic. Well,
pseudo-republic.
A democratic republic, but the problem was General Chiang Kai-shek became the ruler of China. Elected. He was married to one of the daughters of the former emperor, right? Yeah. So to help claim viability. Then he ruled for a while, and then the communists took over, and General Chiang Kai-shek fled to Formosa, the island of Formosa, which became Taiwan. And eventually his family fled to Dallas. And his family lives on here in Texas.
What?
Yeah, seriously. But Taiwan is an independent nation, observed by most of the world. China is ruled by the communists now, and has been for 60 years. Yeah.
It's like a different kind of communism that's going on in China.
Well,
it's like
it was straight communist,
capitalistic communism.
No, it was straight communism,
which doesn't make any sense.
Until they saw the Soviet Union fall apart, and they went.
And then they composed that with like Hong Kong's.
Well, yeah, they went, well, crap. If we keep on this road, we're going to fall apart like Soviet Union. So we need to adapt. And China said, okay, we'll have basic capitalistic reforms, but we'll keep the communist government up at top.
So the economy is like capitalistic, but like civil rights and human rights are like very
they're very communist, right? And I know because I lived there for 5 months back in 1999, and I saw the transition and what was going on. And yes, I was an English teacher at an institute in Wuhan. In Hubei province in 1999 for 5 months.
How's your Chinese?
Mama hoo hoo. You mean so-so?
I have some Chinese in-laws, so
I know a little Chinese.
I've been trying to pick up a little bit.
She's about 20 years old.
A little Chinese.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you had like Turkey, or the Ottoman Empire turning into Turkey during war. You're great at Eastern history. I'm not really well versed.
The Ottoman Empire was broken up in the First World War into Turkey and many other countries, mostly dominated by Britain and other people. Yes. Doctor Who.
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who. We're here for bloody Doctor Who. Okay. So, where were we?
The assassination attempt on Sir Reginald with the gorilla ghost.
Okay, no, we're past that.
Right.
The assassination attempt fails. Unit. Sir Reginald goes to Peking, which is now Beijing, which we'll get off on that tangent. And the Doctor and Joe Grant decide to go to, what's the other place? Archibald?
I don't know.
Yeah.
The estate?
They go to this manor out in the country, 50 miles north of London. Archibald or something like that. And the Doctor and Joe Grant basically house sit this haunted house.
Yeah. While the Reginald is off at the peace conference, he's taking.
Well, he's training the Chinese come to peace conference. He's in Peking,
because
Beijing there.
They backed out of the peace conference, so he went to try to convince them to
so
peace conference.
So the Doctor's like, well, we're gonna wait for these people to come back, and he's messing around with a time transference unit that they left.
Miniature.
Well, the miniature dematerialization circuit, and he's moving
Their
around
rudimentary fanny pack version of the time travel machine.
Okay, so later on, there's a wrist unit that Captain Jack uses, Captain Jack Harkness, to time travel. And it's a really dirty way of time travel, and it's fairly similar to what we see here.
The messenger's satchel.
Right. So, anyway, eventually some time travelers show up in guerrilla warfare outfits, and they're like, "Okay, we must kill you, Sir Reginald." And they're about to kill the Doctor and Joe Grant, and Doctor's like, "Wait a second, who?" They're like, "Sir Reginald." He's like, "Sorry, I'm not Sir Reginald."
Case of mistaken identity.
Yeah, he says that. And they're like, "What?" He's like, "Look at the paper in front of you. Sir Reginald went to
many thousand miles
away to Peking, Beijing. He's there now." And I like the way that the leader, Anash, or whatever her name is, Annette, she's right there in front of the Doctor. She doesn't look at it herself to be, fooled or attacked. She passes it off to her second in command, and he looks at it.
We have 3 guerrilla warfares. We have Shura, or Rashura, Shura for short, Annette, who's the leader, and Boaz.
Right. So Boaz is the violent one.
Yes. Boaz is very headstrong. Shura is very, a good second in command. Then we have Annette. And so she picks up the paper, but she hands it to Shura to read.
And he reads it and he goes, "Oh yeah, this guy's gone away. The picture is not the Doctor. The picture's not this guy." So, the one guy wants to kill them anyway.
Boaz.
Sorry. Boaz. Yeah. And the Doctor's like, "Well,
just off him."
And she's like, Annette's like, "No, we're not murderers. What we have to do, we're not murderers."
Even though they just killed 2 unit soldiers.
Well, they were soldiers, and they need to defend themselves. But there's a difference between soldiers and civilians. Are you trying to say you're trying to do something but not in the podcast?
What?
Hold on.
Soldiers are still people.
Alright, when I was in Amtgard back in the day, playing D&D, which I still do, you would do this and say you're speaking out of character.
Play D&D together. Oh.
You do this, say you're speaking out of character. Look, I'm not speaking in character, I'm speaking out of character.
Online, we just do that in parentheses.
Right.
Out of character.
Right. But you would say,
who's the DM?
In real life role playing, you'd go, okay, what's going on here? What do I need to do? And that would be to say you're speaking out of character. So you put that on your head. I'm like, what are you trying to say?
So what you're saying is John McCain is always in character because he can't speak out.
John McCain's dead.
He couldn't lift his arms above his head.
Because he was tortured in Vietnam.
So he couldn't speak out of character.
True,
so
but he was a really bad presidential candidate. He was a really bad politician. Yes.
No, he was. I love John McCain. He was civilized, rational, respectable.
Okay. We gotta get away from politics. Away from politics.
He's just a good person. Aside from politics,
and he thumbed down the skinny repeal of Obamacare.
John McCain was just an American veteran. Aside from politics, he's just a good guy. He's a cool guy. Aside from politics.
I'm so sorry for this diversion in politics. We're trying not to do it. Politics has infused everything these days. I don't want to do it.
He's a worst.
No politics.
He
no
waved
politics.
Like this
no politics.
he
No politics.
his
No
arms
politics. No
above
politics.
his head. John McCain.
No.
John McCain.
He was a rhino. No.
This is my impression.
Alright.
When do I get to play D&D with you?
I don't know. I would love for you to play D&D
I would
with
love
us,
to
but
play
our
D&D
group
with
is
you.
currently full.
Let's do a another group.
I have
Beginner's D&D night.
I have no nights for another group.
When do y'all do beginner D&D nights at the shop?
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays. You be my DM on Wednesday.
I cannot. I am too busy running the shop on Wednesday.
Do you ever have like really short, self-contained, single-session campaigns?
Yes, on Wednesdays by a different DM. I don't get to DM. I haven't DM'd in 30 years.
Well, have a character. When you're busy doing the shop, he'll be an autopilot, and then you jump in the campaign whenever you're free. Like when you used to play Friday Night Magic. We would play Magic games while you're still running the shop.
The shop's generally too busy for that now. So I have to have a second person with me at the shop. Alright.
That'll be your second person.
Oh my gosh.
Episode 2.
I think we're past episode 2, but what the hell do you have for that?
Episode 2 was right when the Daleks showed up with the controller. So I think we're still in episode 1. God bless you.
Thank you.
Is that the corona? Sit down to the dinner table and we'll be immune to the corona.
No, it's temperature change. When the temperature
I get that
changes,
too. I get allergies during the season changes. During the fall. God bless you.
No, the temperature in this room is colder, so
it is colder. You need a jacket.
So
You're not in
no, it's just...
You're just in a t-shirt.
That's a jersey.
Jersey, yeah.
A little thicker than a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's true. Keep you warm.
Okay.
What is
Where
that?
were we?
Is that a marble sack or a mask?
That's a mask. That's a mask. Okay.
We were on the guerrilla warfare soldiers holding the doctor and Joe hostage, and they're just now discovering that the doctor's not actually Sir Reginald.
Okay, so these guerrillas war soldiers from the future, 200 years in the future, 22nd century,
22nd century.
Or 22nd century,
To the
come back to the 20th century, try and stop this war. This war is
You
created...
ever watched The Mummy?
Yeah, the original.
There's that one scene. It's not the original, it's the second one. What's his name? The guy that got real chubby all of a sudden.
Brendan Fraser?
Brendan Fraser. He gets real chubby later on. He did. He's super chubby now. But in the second Mummy, he pulls out the machine gun. Maybe it's the third. Second or third. He pulls out the machine gun and he's like, "Welcome to the 20th century."
Okay.
Love that line.
Alright, so... Anyways. Alright, so...
This is the one with the locusts.
Yeah, that was in, I think, all of them.
The second one.
Okay.
Second or third. It was probably the third.
I love Brendan Fraser. Great actor, does only family movies. A really wholesome guy. Love him. Okay, so back to Doctor Who. The Doctor and Joe are captured by these two gorillas. The Doctor wins him. He's not Sir Reginald. They tie up the Doctor and Joe in the cellar.
Because Unit's
The wine
on their
cellar.
way.
Yeah, because Unit's looking for them. Unit can't find them. Unit also can't find their two men who were killed by these gorillas. How many deaths do we have?
So, we have at least 8 people died.
8 humans.
7 Ogrons. And then 4 off-screen deaths. So those are just corpses that are on screen, but we didn't see them die on screen.
And how many Daleks?
1.
So
Dalek.
it's what, 24 deaths?
So 5, 10, 15, 19, about 20.
15 and 7 is 22, and 1 is 23.
We have 8 humans, 7 Ogrons, 4 off-screen, and 1 Dalek. So about 20.
So about 20. Yay! Children's show.
Children's show.
Yay!
Not breaking records, but still pretty violent. To be fair, most of the deaths are from these like sonic disintegrators. So it's not really like the bloody blah. It's just person ceased to exist. Yeah,
but there are several unit soldiers lying on the ground.
A lot of bloody corpses, just lying around.
And several Ogrons get shot in the same fashion.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so you're getting a refill. Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, we're good. The new battery is much longer lasting than the old battery. We could probably go 3 hours with it.
You got a new battery?
I told you, I got a new battery. So if the old battery dies, I can pop in a new one.
Oh, I didn't know it was like longer
so
lasting.
We have 2.
Though.
I didn't know either. But
I knew about the new tactical reload utility. I thought they're just the same.
I thought so, but this one seems to last longer.
Cool.
Alright, cool. Alright, you go get refills. Yay, sharpness. Okay. Alright.
Switch to camera 3. Close up.
Close up, yeah. Okay, so... Alright, so the Doctor and Joe are trying to deal with these rebels, these people in the gorilla outfits. Joe Grant grabs the fanny pack satchel time-ish travel thingy. She threatens to destroy it. They say, no, don't. She goes, no, I'll destroy it. They say, no, don't. Throw it down. And she gets zapped into time and disappears. So she gets zapped in the 22nd century. Gets picked up by the bad humans and the Daleks, because it is now obvious the Daleks are behind this, hence Day of the Daleks. And there's a quizzling lickspittle human who's working for the Daleks, who then says, hey, I'll help you, and I'm sorry about these rebels. They attacked you and they tried to kill you. I'm so sorry. And he convinces Joe that he's on her side. Joe tells him everything, spills all the beans. He convinces her that he's a good guy and there's a bad guy, and he lulls her into a false sense of security. In the meantime, the 2 remaining rebels, because I sent one guy out to double check with base with some communication device. He runs off, he's not seen again. So those 2 finally run off when a whole bunch of Ogrons, which are these orc-like entities, show up to kill them. And these orc-like entities are commanded by the Quisling humans and the Daleks. They were taken from some outer planets in the solar system, although in the galaxy, although to be fair, Earth is pretty much an outer planet in the galaxy. So they hone in on the base, on this house out in the country, 50 miles north of London, Auckland, or whatever it's called. They run away, the 2 remaining rebels. The Doctor chases after them. Brigadier shows up. The Doctor takes his jeep. He runs after them. They all go down into this tunnel, which is a fixed point in our century and in, well, the 20th century. We're now in the 21st. In the 22nd century. And the Doctor follows them, and he sees a Dalek. End of episode 2. So now you know the Daleks are involved. Episode 3, the Doctor simply runs away from the Dalek because the Dalek never fires. He meets up with the 2 rebels, and then he gets zapped to the 22nd century with them, which is good because he's looking for Joe Grant there. They're all in the 22nd century. They run away from the problems of the Daleks and the Ogrons, the orcs. The doctor's like, well, I'm looking for Joe Grant. And the rebels are like, well, we don't know you, we don't like you, you gotta go your own way. So, well, not exactly. The Daleks show up, and the lady rebels like, run away. So the two rebels run one way, and the doctor runs another. The doctor ends up running.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Excelente. Okay, good. That's good. So.
What episode are we on?
Door.
Does the door being shut help the audio quality, or
it helps me?
It helps you?
It helps me. Alright, I don't want to wake up my wife.
Oh.
So
I got some sound phone we can.
Eventually. And eventually I'll get the better microphone. Alright. So anyway,
microphone quality is great.
And we'll get the sound phone, that'll be great. We'll get the screen, that'll be great.
Our viewers are more concerned about our health than our audio quality.
We have viewers?
They're like, oh, you're really drunk in this episode.
Episode 50, yeah. We were wasted. The War Games is 10 episodes, and we were so toasted. And we got a comment.
The comments were like,
whoa,
are you okay?
It's good. Thank you for caring, and thank you for commenting, and wow. Anyway, so the doctor runs away, and he runs to a tower, trying to find the civilization. The tower turns out to be tower.
Speaking of towers, you have a Minecraft tower.
Yes.
How are you liking Minecraft? Is this your first time playing Minecraft?
No.
Oh.
My 5th time or so.
You enjoy it?
Yes. What are you doing? Where are you going?
Speaking of our loyal fans, I wanted to show our biggest fans' contribution to our podcast is our miniatures. He provided us with these.
It did. But we won't see
Someone
that for a long, long time.
Who shops locally.
Yes.
Sponsored by Mad Hatter's House of Games.
Not sponsored by.
Sponsored by. Yeah, sure. Sure we are.
We're not.
By Mad Hatter's?
No, I work there, but the shop would not sponsor this Drunken Rebel Fest.
Oh, it wouldn't?
Well, I'd love it to, but it doesn't.
Until we get to a higher production value, then maybe.
Yeah, right. All right.
We'll get there.
So no, one of my friends / customers / I guess you could say fans donated this Torchwood
and a couple
Weevil,
others.
Yeah, to the show.
Let me grab the others.
He was wonderful. What are you?
Speaking of loyal fans,
you're trying to make this episode as long as possible, aren't you?
No. We only have this cereal to discuss.
As long as possible.
Plus the docudrama, plus the favorite of the seasons.
Scorex Leader and Geth Zombie. Gilf. You know, we've shown these before, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to appreciate our fans, our loyal fan base, our followers,
Thank you,
our viewers.
both of you. Seriously, I think of the 4 viewings, one's you, one's me, and the other 2 are somebody else's.
Probably also us.
No.
Clicking on the video a second time.
In theory, that's possible, actually. So we may not have any fan base at all, but that's fine.
As you refresh.
So someday when I'm long dead and gone, maybe 30 years from now, this might become a meme and it might be followed and good. Mm-hmm. Good for y'all. Enjoy us. Enjoy me while I'm alive.
Oh, this is just a meme gold mine waiting to happen.
Okay. You will do the circuit on the whatever tours.
Absolutely.
You'll be famous and I'll be dead.
No. We'll have panels, we'll have It'll be a thing.
Maybe I'll be the one good. I'm already 52. To your health.
You have a good 50 years ahead of you.
A
good 52 years ahead of you.
Hoping to be raptured before then. Alright. So anyway, the doctor finds some big towers. He goes into tower 117 or 112.
117.
Yeah, 117. Turns out to be a bit
I remember that because it's the same number as John, the Spartan from the Master Chief from the Halo series, Spartan 117.
I haven't seen
117 is a consistent number for science fiction things. It's a science fiction callback. 117.
Okay. Was it THX 1138?
ZV.
No, THX 1138.
ZV8. Their calling card for the gorillas.
No, I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about the movie.
What movie?
THX 1138.
The docudrama we just watched?
No.
What movie?
It's a movie by a guy who later on went to do like Star Wars and stuff.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
Did movie THX 1138.
That was the name of the movie?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know what that
George
is.
Lucas.
Yeah,
And then
George
later
Lucas.
on, he
Made
used
a
the term
sci-fi.
THX for a sound system.
Oh.
But it was a dystopian film, THX 1138, I think.
Sounds like a small indie film.
It was.
I guess it
It
didn't
was.
catch on.
Well,
Speaking
he caught
of,
on
we're gonna make our own small indie film
eventually.
next year. It's coming up.
Yes.
We better start script writing. Hey, if you have an idea, a scene, a script, a genre,
We need a
you'd like to
script?
see, yeah.
No, it's a bad movie. You just
Yeah.
roll with whatever people make up.
Even The Room had a script,
Oh my god.
and that's what made
Why
the
would you-
movie. Tommy Wiseau, let us know what you think about a bad movie featuring on this channel, probably
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
coming to a YouTube channel near you next year.
maybe. Alright, so
Absolutely, definitely.
THX 1138. You should watch it. Alright.
Okay.
So
Should I add it to the movie list?
sure. Actually, yeah, it's a movie list.
What is it called?
THX 1138.
THX 1138.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Okay, so the doctor goes into 117 production unit. This tower looks like it's from Milton Keynes. He goes into it and he sees old people working in a factory, and he gets captured. And then he gets kind of interrogated, / tortured, and then taken by
Roughed up.
the Quisling to meet Joe Grant. And the doctor's like, well, this world's interesting, but you're not in control. Who's controlling you? Talk to the guy who the Daleks control. And that guy leaves. And the doctor's like, okay. And Joe Grant's like, well, you don't understand. They're nice. I'm helping them. And the doctor's like, well, you don't understand. You haven't seen the full picture. It's not what you think it is. And then the doctor convinces Joe Grant to pretend she's hurt. The Ogron comes in. And Dr. Venusian Kung Fu's him, which fails spectacularly. And until Joe Grant hits him over the head with a
vase, a wine.
Not vase, a decanter of wine. Bottle of wine. He goes down.
For which we surmise that probably the Ogrons have different pressure points than the humans. For which the Venusian Kung Fu is. Speaking of, why does the Doctor know Venusian Kung Fu, which is effective against specifically humans, who tries to use it against an alien species? Which leads us to believe that most alien species have similar nerve structure to humanoids. Maybe Ogrons are the exception. Maybe there's like a universal, norm, and then there are certain offshoot alien species like Daleks, and then
Can I quote Willy Wonka? Can I quote Willy Wonka?
Absolutely.
Please save all questions till the end.
Okay.
Alright. Okay, so the Doctor and Grant attempt an escape. They run around in some sort of little dune buggy. Little three-wheeler. It's so cute. Eventually the Ogrons catch up to them because the dune buggy three-wheeler really has 8 mile an hour speed.
Small.
Yeah, small is bad. They get captured. They get taken back to the Quisling commander. But then the rebels figure out the Doctor is hated by the Daleks and they must rescue the Doctor. In the meantime, the Doctor is placed on the table and his mind probed to determine whether or not he's the Doctor. It's the first time the Daleks have encountered this visage, this incarnation of the Doctor, and they will make sure he's the same Doctor. And they mind probe him, and he eventually gives up the secret that yes, he's the Doctor. And the commander, the Quisling, comes in and he's like, wait, we need him to help us glean information on the rebels. Don't kill him.
When you use the phrase Quisling, have you explained what that means?
Yes. Yes, a cowardly traitor. So he saves the Doctor and Joe, and then they eventually escape thanks to the help of the rebels, who come in and hold everyone at gunpoint, take out all the guards. Then the Doctor and Joe run out of the sewers, but they're met with an ambush of Ogrons and the Quisling, and they meet up with him, and the Doctor's like, look, I can stop all of this. You're in this great big time loop. Because he talked to the rebels, and he figured out there was one rebel who was going to cause the explosion in the peace conference house that would destroy all the ambassadors and start the Third World War. But the explosion was not set up by Sir Reginald. It was set up by one of the rebels' own people. The one single guy was left behind. So the Doctor was like, well, let me go back and stop him, and I can put the timeline on a proper track, and this entire circular timeline wouldn't exist, because if you don't go back to try to stop it, your guy wouldn't blow it up, which is actually the cause of it, which means your guy wouldn't blow it up, which is like the cause of it. So, one big giant paradox.
Prophecy.
Correct. Which, by the way, is the plot of Terminator.
Exactly the same plot as Terminator.
Which would happen 12 years later. Yeah, 12 years later. So the Doctor convinces the Quisling, the commander, to let him go. He sends all of the Ogrons away. He allows the Doctor and Joe to go back to their own time. They go back to their own time. They convince the Brigadier to send everyone, including Sir Reginald, all the diplomats, everyone away.
Evacuate the prince.
evacuate the premises, right. In the meantime, the Daleks and the Ogrons are invading the premises. The Doctor gets everyone out. The Brigadier's like, you will leave now. Sir Reginald's like, no, I will not. The Brigadier's like, you will leave now. Take him away, Corporal Yates?
Captain.
Yeah. Captain Yates.
Yes.
They all get taken away, and then eventually the Doctor goes in the basement and speaks to the lone rebel who's still there, who has Dalekanium.
His hurt arm, because
he's
hurt
arm. And he has Dalekanium, which can blow up the Daleks.
Very volatile.
Right.
Substance.
And the Doctor explains to him, no, everyone's out, you won't kill them, you're killing me. And Shura's like, no, I've got to blow them all up. So the Doctor's like, well, so be it. The Doctor and Joe leave. They eventually catch up with the Sergeant Benton and everybody. They all leave. The Daleks take over, and they all get blown up when Shura blows up the place. But the peace conference...
It's just a miniature.
The peace conference is allowed to continue, and it's supposedly a success, which allows the Earth to avoid World War III. And that's the whole long and short of it.
That's the end of Serial 60.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alright, what are your questions?
So, let's talk about the nature of the Daleks. The Daleks returning after a long hiatus, and I think that has to do with the ownership of the Daleks and the rights of the Daleks, because
Partly.
they abandoned the Daleks for a while, and then they sort of went ham on the Cybermen, and kind of as if the Cybermen were meant to replace the Daleks.
Well, the Cybermen
as the
master.
As the recurring, villains. And then they had the Master, and that was the recurring villain. And then all of a sudden you have the Daleks show up again. But they show up, in the serial, only 4 episodes. So do you have any insight or comments on the return of the Daleks? And their triumphant return, but, just for these 4 episodes? And where have they been this whole time?
Okay. To be fair, it should have been 5 episodes. Okay. Not 4, but they're sticking to even numbers now. And you're going to go 4 or 6. 4 is better. The Daleks were inspired and written by Terry Nation, which we saw in the Adventure Space in Time.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Anyway, they're awesome.
So the Daleks are super cool. They're this recurring villain. They're around for a while. They kept coming back.
Long time,
because they're super popular, but they were owned by the writer Terry Nation, not the BBC. And then all of a sudden they disappeared for a couple of seasons, and then now they're back. So where have they been this whole time? Why have they sort of been
to be fair,
replaced?
You don't want the same villain recurring every week. You don't want the same villain recurring even every year. You want him to show up and have a say and have his due, be defeated hopefully, and then he goes. But I mean, too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing,
So does that have anything to do with the fact that the BBC just didn't have the rights to
sometimes,
the Daleks?
Sometimes, yeah.
So they sort of had this splint where they're trying to replace them with the Cybermen, and then the Master. Well, Terry Nation was. Did he ever license the Daleks out to anyone else?
Well, the movies.
And now he's come back and said, okay, I can make another serial of the Daleks again. Yeah. But it's only 4 episodes long.
Yeah, this was a short one, 4 episodes from the Daleks. No, to be fair, I don't know if there was some sort of behind the scenes tussle about the Daleks. I don't know. I don't know if they didn't want to pay Toonation what it wanted for royalties or, screenings of the Daleks. I don't know. All I know is you can't have them every season, and you can't do them every serial, and this is when they showed up,
They did show up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool, because I like the Daleks.
Yay!
But even though this was a shorter serial, 4 episodes, it was the cool return of the Daleks. They weren't even in it that much. They were in a few, like a handful of scenes. They're sort of the underlying masterminds behind it all.
Right.
But for the most part, you saw more action on the front lines with the Ogrons, the Daleks minions. We had the controller. The Daleks were very much behind the scenes sort of villain.
Right.
Yeah. So does that lay the groundwork for the Daleks returning again soon?
They will always return.
When's the next? Like, how many more serials until we meet the Daleks again? In the meantime, we're kind of discussing the role of the Doctor Who timeline. We know that our timeline is different from the Doctor Who timeline, obviously because as the writers were writing what they think would happen in the future versus what actually happened in the future, our timelines diverged from reality in the show. But also you have reoccurring timelines, like what the writers wrote, what they thought would happen in the future, like the Daleks' invasion of Earth and the Cybermen. That all took place in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And then several seasons passed, and we're on a new Doctor, and once again they're traveling into the same sort of muddied future timeline of 100 years, 200 years in the future, 20th, 21st, 22nd centuries. You have this sort of overlap, which leads us to believe, is this the same consistent linear timeline, or are there alternate dimensions, offshoots on the same timeline? How do you think the timeline works in Doctor Who?
Okay. First of all, we see the Daleks next in a season and a half, a serial of 68.
Okay, same
in
Doctor.
Season 10, right?
Same season and a half, so.
Okay. To answer your other question.
The timeline question.
Yes.
Yes. Just
timey-wimey,
wibbly-wobbly.
Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. In Doctor Who, stuff happens. And it is sometimes explained, sometimes not explained.
Mm-hmm.
But like when Doctor and Joe Grant show up in this serial to their former selves, it's never explained.
It's never explained.
Never. So things happen, things don't happen, things happen and they're explained, things happen, they're understood, things happen, there's not explained. It just happens. It's Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm. A consistent trope we see are people being very skeptical of things that you think they would have seen before, because we travel in the future, the Daleks invade, then they're back to their own timeline, and they travel again into the future, Cybermen invade, travel back to their own time, travel in the future, people are like, Cybermen, they don't really exist. Daleks, what are you on about? Aliens? You think at some point the Earth would have withstood enough invasions to where they're like, oh yeah, there are definitely alien species out there. And sometimes they are. Sometimes we'll travel into the future and we'll meet a timeline with a brigadier. They're like, oh yeah, Cybermen, I know who they are. I believe you. But for the most part, it's like, oh, what are you on about? Aliens? Aliens don't exist.
Okay, so the question is why doesn't humanity recognize alien invasions when they've experienced it?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay, so in the current revival, it's explained that human beings will mentally paste over history as they need to make it to their understanding. So if aliens invade and they can't mentally accept it, they'll just gloss over it as something else. It's kind of a flimsy explanation, was the one that's given.
It's also a believable explanation in the grand scheme of things.
Well, I mean,
Humans can only relate to what they have experience with. So when they see something supernatural, you know, miracles,
or extraterrestrial,
spiritual, extraterrestrial, the first coming of Christ, they explain it away as, oh, there's some sort of explanation.
Right.
That didn't really happen. Something, you know.
So if you were to see a ghost,
Mm-hmm.
and you couldn't put it into your mind frame, your understanding of reality, you might just say, like the guy did in the serial, well, I don't understand that. It didn't happen.
Ghosts. Come on, Doctor. In the sense of you think of ghosts as benevolent. How did the Doctor explain it? He described himself and Joe as ghosts in the sense that they were representations of themselves in a different
Out of time, right? Yeah, from the future, yeah.
So in the second episode, we made history in Doctor Who, where the Doctor not only picked up a gun, he shot an Ogron, which is, to my knowledge, the first depiction of the Doctor ever actually ending someone's life. You know, there's been times in the past where he resorted to violence as a survival. He's used Venusian kung fu. He's cracked someone over the head with his walking stick. Hartnell did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can say that person was knocked out. He threw the guy out the window. That person was fine. He's had self-defense. You know, you can argue maybe that person was knocked out. Maybe he died. We don't know. But the Doctor has used, you know, physical means of self-defense. Here is what I believe to be the first time we've ever actually seen the Doctor actually pick up a weapon and end someone's life. He picked up the disintegrator gun and he shot an Ogron and killed an Ogron. It's the first time the Doctor has ever actually shot and killed somebody for his own self-preservation. What do you think about that?
Let me think. Alright.
Do you remember that? And
the second Doctor
Troughton.
Right, Troughton helped kill all the people on Atlantis.
Through like a third party means.
Right. Through the mad scientist who was there.
Mm-hmm.
But he did help do that.
But he didn't exactly take their lives into his own hands,
Right.
physically pick up a weapon and end someone's life himself.
Right, he just dropped the gate so the guy couldn't get through and stop it. So, I mean, that's a tomato. Alright, drink. Take a shot because I took his pin out of the stinking couch.
Is that a drinking game? That
For
viewers
the 2 viewers we have, yes it is.
Okay.
Alright. Someday when this is big and we have thousands of viewers, that'll be funny. Yeah. Alright.
Be a recurring thing. Until we get a...
I may or may not be around. You might be doing this with somebody else at that point.
No. If anyone, it's me that's going to regenerate first. And you'll be carrying on the show.
I doubt it, but possibly. Alright, hold on, I'm still thinking, but I don't know.
Yeah. The Doctor actually picked up a weapon and ended someone's life.
Alright,
An alien.
then might go back to the first Doctor with the shillelagh,
The walking
Roman
stick.
guard, yeah.
I would argue that, you know, that person was easily incapacitated. Sure. Was he killed? No, I don't think he died because he was whacked in the back of the head. Much like Joe whacked the controller in the back of the head with the wine decanter. He was fine.
No, it was an Ogron.
Yes. Yeah, an Ogron. I'm sure he was fine. He's just knocked out. So there's a difference between, you know, someone being conveniently knocked out for the sake of the escape versus someone actually dying on camera, like the Doctor picking up a gun and shooting an Ogron, disintegrating him.
Sure. Next.
Next, we have talked about timelines, alternate dimensions. Why don't the Daleks ever kill the Doctor when they have a chance? We have the Doctor strapped to a table. They could have just killed him then. They're a long, recurring enemy. He's an enemy of the Doctor. Exterminate on sight. Strap him to the table. He changed physical appearances again. They use the mind reader to confirm his identity.
Make sure it's him, yeah.
Yeah. And then they don't kill him when they have the perfect opportunity to off him.
Short answer, because it is for the plot. Long answer, because we don't want the Doctor to die.
The controller comes in and he argues that he can use the Doctor.
Right.
But at the same time, do the Daleks know that the Doctor's regenerating? That he's kind of a pseudo-immortal, that if they kill him, he'll just come back?
Maybe.
Do they really understand the nature of the Doctor?
Maybe.
Because last time they saw Hartnell and then they saw Troughton.
Yeah.
They recognized him as the Doctor because of... even though he changed physical appearance the first time they saw him as Troughton. What was their explanation? They said something about his
physiology,
his imperial intellect. They're like, yeah, that's the Doctor, and then he's physically different.
Right.
And then this time, they could only recognize him after reading his mind with the.
Right. You finish up. I'm gonna rest you. Okay. And then we've got to do a recap on.
We do have we not only watched the 60th serial. The Doctor Who. We also watched the docudrama
An Adventure in Space
Adventures in Space and Time. And then, after that, we have a special treat because once again we have to pick out our favorite serial of season episode 5. So all of that you have to look forward to coming up soon in a podcast near you. It's kind of detrimental to the nature of a podcast when the stars, the podcast hosts walk off camera. That's like a what do you call it? A faux pas, like a podcasting faux pas. when I get up and go to the bathroom and you leave just one host. But you know, what can you do? If we weren't, it's the fact that it's very hard to not go to the bathroom after you've been drinking. So I have a few more questions. I can't really discuss them in length without Hatter here to ask the questions too, because he's the professor, the person who has the answers. So instead, let's talk about the nature of the podcast, and let's do a quick channel update and where the podcast is going. So we're trying to increase the production value. Hatter just got a new computer, so we can do a lot more easy editing, rendering. It's a lot faster. We can tack on some new title cards. We just made our intro for the Heroes and Villains, which is like an offshoot subsidiary podcast. So we have the Drunk Doctor Who podcast, which is us discussing the serial that we watched. Heroes and Villains is going to be like a sort of, what do you call it? Just a subsidiary, other episode. Kind of like how Hatter discussed the history of the companions and the history of the Doctors, and it's just going to be a miscellaneous, extra videos we put out every once in a while, just for fun, to where we take a whole podcast separate from the Drunk Doctor Who podcast, where you just talk about one specific villain or companion or doctor, a different kind of podcast, just something we can, film and put out a few real quick, just so we can have some off days and still have something to upload weekly to the channel, because we want to stay consistent for the viewers, and that's kind of hard to do sometimes of the year throughout the seasons. Holiday seasons, we don't really have the consistent uploads that we can post a video real quick when maybe one of us are on vacation or one of us is feeling under the weather, or we just don't feel like drinking, we watch a movie. Instead, it's nice to have a backup that we can just, post to the channel real quick. Speaking of posting to the channel, we're also invested in you guys, the viewers, and we want to provide a good viewing experience. Not only are we doing these videos for fun, just as an excuse to sit down and watch some Doctor Who, which is always fun, drink, have a good time, and chat about nerdy stuff like Drunk Doctor Who, but also we want to, really challenge ourselves to improve the viewing experience, to expound upon the audio quality, the intros, the editing. Welcome back, Edward.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Okay, we finished the main series, right?
Yeah, we're all done. We did the recap. We're talking about questions.
Okay, what's the next question?
We just talked about the Daleks. Did we talk about how this was basically the plot of the Terminator with the time traveling?
I mentioned that when we were watching it, yeah. Yeah, it's basically the plot of the Terminator. So, dystopian future, we figured out time travel from the bad guys, the Daleks.
We captured their technology and tried to use it against them in guerrilla warfare.
So we'll send somebody back to change time, but that person who tries to change time ends up creating our own timeline. It's a perpetual loop, and that's what the Doctor tries to fix, and does fix by convincing the one rebel from blowing up the place until everyone's gone.
Now, can we talk about how the theory is that there are fixed points in time that cannot be changed? So how is this point in time changed? It was not a fixed point in time, which means this was just an offshoot, alternate dimension.
Okay. Whatever the Doctor Who plot needs, it gets.
Like the monk. The monk tried to change time, but he was thwarted. Because of the Doctor, but maybe it was a fixed point in time.
No.
Kind of pseudo-explored.
Whatever the Doctor Who story needs, it gets. If it needs to be a fixed point in time, it's a fixed point in time. If it doesn't need to be, it's not.
But us as fans, of Doctor Who, we always have to play devil's advocate and come up with some sort of explanation in a roundabout way.
So what's the question?
Alternate dimension, offshoot, and the timeline.
What's the question?
I don't know. There is no spoon.
There is no spoon.
There is no question. We talked about how this was an oddly short amount of episodes for the Daleks.
Should have been 5. It was 4, but that's fine actually.
But the Daleks.
Better than the Daleks always have more episodes. This is only 4 instead of 6.
And that brings us to an end of Serial 60. We've covered the plot summary, the questions, but we also watched...
Wait, before that,
we're doing
this.
Season 5. I'm not prepared for this at all.
What are you talking about? Alright, hold on to that. Season 5. Okay. So,
on camera.
So
where's the bottom line of our camera?
It's about there. Alright, so
about here?
Yep. Alright, so Season 5, we have Tomb of the Cybermen, an absolute classic.
Where does the old camera line end over here?
The edge of that.
Okay.
So the edge of that, right here. That's it. So when we did the last video, this was much off camera because I didn't have it down low enough. So now I've got it lower. Now I've got it lower. Okay. So
we just
alright. So Season 5, Tomb of the Cybermen, the Abominable Snowman, the Ice Warriors.
This was good.
Enemy of the World, Web of Fear, Spirit from the Deep, and The Wheel in Space.
This was good.
Okay.
This was good. This one was okay.
Okay.
This one was good.
Okay, so what's the best of these? What would you eliminate?
Fear of the Deep was a reconstruction. Is that right?
Maybe, yeah. Several of these were reconstructions.
Let's go over these and talk about. Give us a quick recap of what each of these were.
Tube of the Cybermen.
We had the Tube of the Cybermen.
Fully exists. It is an absolute classic.
Which it was like a rare gem of an reconstructed episode. A lot of
it was a Cyberman coming out of there.
Missing. This was a serial we have in its entirety. We have a famous scene of the Cybermen's coming out of their
deal, yeah. It was fantastic. It's an absolute classic.
It's a classic. So then the Abominable Snowman. This is the return of the This is the first time we see
First time we see the Yeti.
Okay. I'm confusing this with season 6. Yeti.
You're confusing that with Web of Fear. That's the return of the Yeti.
That's the return of the Yeti. So these kind of are feed into each other.
One episode here, 5 episodes here that exists.
Yeah, so, a lot of reconstructions here. The first time we see the Cyber Yetis.
The Yetis.
We also have the Ice Warriors.
Right.
Not to be confused with the Ice Soldiers.
The Ice Warriors are
they're cool. I was a fan of them. And then talk to us about the Enemy of the World.
Love that. It's fully found now.
Yes.
Love it. Alright, Web of Fear.
The Web of Fear was the return of the Yetis. We have some recurring characters. We have the older... he was kind of like an explorer turned scientist. And then we have the Fury of the Deep. Talk to us about the Fury of the Deep.
That's good. Yeah. But then the Wheel in Space.
And then the Wheel in Space was fun.
Yeah, but not... Alright. This is not on below everything else.
It's just not on below. No. So talk to us about why you would vote that off first.
It's okay.
It's not as good.
Shoot. Alright. To boil it down, Enemy of the World, Tomb of the Cybermen.
Everything else can go. So, let's talk about the Yetis. The Yetis were fun. They're a reoccurring villain, a sort of a self-contained reoccurring thing. But they're just not... While they kind of established an ongoing role in season 5, they just don't really hit on the same level of the iconicism of the Cybermen and the Enemy of the World. The Ice Warriors were also really cool. Let's talk about the Fury of the Deep. What did you think about the Fury of the Deep?
It's good.
It was good.
It's really good. But it's not everything. It's not all that in a bag of chips.
Not all that in a bag of chips. So compare and contrast
these two.
So you would vote these.
I'd vote 1 and 4. Period.
My voting would be this one first because the Ice Warriors are really cool. So they outweigh the Fury of the Deep. But then when we're left to these 3, the next one to go would probably be the Ice Warriors. As much of a fan I am. So now we're left with the very iconic The Tomb of the Cybermen versus the Enemy of the Enemy of the World. Talk to us, Hatter, about the Enemy of the World. Should I pull out my notes? When it comes down to the wire, it'll take me a minute to find them. Just off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah, what do you think about
Absolute classic.
Absolute
loving.
We have the Cybermen.
Everyone loves this.
The sock face.
This is absolutely wonderful once they have the actual episodes. I would declare it a tie.
A tie?
A tie. I would advance both of these into our second Doctor fight. No, I'm not picking between these two. These two are... Wait, this is absolutely fantastic. Okay.
There can be only one.
Enemy of the World is absolutely fantastic.
It is good.
Absolutely fantastic. Tomb of the Cybermen is so classic. If you can choose one over the other, then do it. I will give them a draw.
Here's my rationale. Sure, we have the Cybermen, which are classic. They have their, iconic scenes.
Coming out of the tomb.
In terms of originality and just the most enjoyable serial, I would have to give it to the Enemy of the World.
Enemy of the World.
If I had to pick a favorite between these two, just barely, I think, Enemy of the World. Just barely.
Then race to the Cybermen. Go with Enemy of the World.
Alright, what about you? What about you?
I've given them a tie.
So you're tied.
Enemy of the World.
If I'm going to be the tiebreaker,
and that's it.
I'm going to go with the Enemy of the World.
Alright, Enemy of the World.
Which
got Salamander.
Just barely.
Salamander.
Just barely dethrones the Cybermen. Classic recurring villains. They're awesome. They're very cool. But you just can't outdo. They had some very outstanding, memorable scenes. But all of Salamander and the Enemy of the World, you have so much. It's just a great experience. A lot of fun. We get to see Salamander ejected into space. He was awesome.
Write that down.
I'm gonna write that down. The Enemy of the World is the winner of season 5.
Yay, Salamander!
As our favorite.
Yay. Okay, so not the Daleks, not the Cybermen, but Salamander, the Enemy of the World. I'm glad. I am so glad.
That's not a
Before it was found, that wouldn't have happened.
What?
The reconstructions wouldn't have conveyed everything well.
That's a good point.
So after they found it,
we might have to revisit this after watching the animations.
No, it's found. It's good. It's done.
Well, yeah.
What I'm saying is, before they found it, it would not have been considered for such. But now they found it, it's wonderful.
So we have, Daleks, Cybermen, Daleks,
Salamander.
And then an upset, we have actually, Salamander won over the Cybermen. Which you think the Cybermen is great, classic, reoccurring villains, good scenes. But
it was close, but I love Enemy.
If you're leaving me up to be the tiebreaker, I'm a big fan of the Salamander. I wish he came back more.
Yes, but he's dead now.
I would like to argue that, he's drifting in space.
No,
he has a different physiology.
He's dead.
It's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He's probably picked up somewhere.
No, dead.
He could still be alive. He could still be alive.
Dead.
He could still be alive.
Dead.
Okay, so
then
there you have it, folks. The winner of season 5.
Right.
What else did we watch?
All right. After the Daleks,
we have the docudrama Adventures in Time,
Space and Time,
which was just, it was a roller coaster of emotions. It was a tearjerker.
It was about the first Doctor. Well, about William Hartnell.
It was about William
Hartnell,
the first Doctor. The showrunners. We had the original actors. We had references.
We had some original actors. Yeah. But it was about Verity Lambert and
Hussein.
What was his name? Something Hussein.
Something Hussein. So we have this depiction of just modernizing television, going in a new direction. We have the decision to launch Doctor Who, and they had no idea it was going to be the huge cultural impact that it was going to have. In the time, they were just focused on what's popular in the time being, sci-fi, kids. We need a hook for the the sports, the young adult audience, and the kids.
Between this show and this show,
It brought on Verity Lambert because he needs someone with piss and vinegar in their veins, someone that can take charge. So we see a lot of inspiring stories of everyone having their own struggles. We have Verity Lambert.
And Verity Lambert, the first female...
the very first female
producer at the BBC.
Yeah.
And Waham awesome.
Hussein. So we
the
have
first Indian and gay, well, supposedly gay.
Yeah.
Director of the BBC.
So we have just this emotional roller coaster of sexism and racism and social normalities. We have Hartnell and his struggle with his, just his fight with substance abuse, with smoking and alcohol, and the role that played in his early aging.
Which is odd to say during Doctor Who.
So we have all these different characters with their own struggles coming together and just making this cultural phenomenon. There's just something amazing. And you have these really inspiring scenes of how these these cultural misfits just come together, and they encourage and inspire each other to just be something exceptional.
To William Hartnell.
William Hartnell, yeah. Rest in peace, William Hartnell.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something they tacked together as an afterthought, Studio D, and they just go with it as they pretend that they talk William Hartnell into it, saying, "Oh, this is cutting edge technology. This is something special."
Well,
when in reality,
some of it was.
When in reality, yeah, because they're experimenting, they had free reign to try other things. So yeah, they're able to produce something that was different and special and had new technology in it.
But the place they filmed.
But yeah, they had low budget. They weren't allowed a whole lot of reshoots or edits.
Okay, to be fair, that was all of the British Broadcasting Corporation in the 1960s.
Yeah.
They were still recovering from the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
And that toll on them was heavy until the 1980s.
So because of their budget and the fact that they weren't allowed a whole lot of edits, we have William Hartnell, who he was aging early, and he's not real sharp, and he's struggling with his lines. He was typecast in these military roles, so all of a sudden he made this transition to sci-fi.
After Carry On Sergeant.
Right, yeah. So he's just struggling with his lines, and then he's making mistakes, and the fact that they're not allowed a whole lot of edits in their show. We have these scenes that were just immortalized where he got a line wrong. We've
seen those.
Yeah, we've seen those. He mispronounces Chesterton.
Or
Chesterton.
Yeah. Or like in the
gloves instead of
the Daleks master plan. Where like, Merry Christmas to you all and to all a good night.
Right.
And he wouldn't do it again, so it's immortalized in Doctor Who,
And on the one hand, it feels very personable. It feels realistic because most of the time in television, you have these actors that memorize their lines. They're just impeccable. You have these showrunners that write these scripts, and it's all very precise and accurate and exact. And that doesn't necessarily always reflect real life. In real life, you have people, they flub, they make mistakes, they mispronounce things, they say something wrong, they call you the wrong name. So it feels personal, it feels realistic. You have these characters that are thrust together in this situation. They're not going to perfectly remember each other's names. They're not going to perfectly pronounce everything. And in my situation, it doesn't destroy the immersion. It only serves to increase the immersion and the convincing reality of it. And we've had this renaissance recently of writers and showrunners adopting imperfections in script writing, and they have shows like Bob's Burgers, where they specifically write scripts to have characters talk over each other, which is like a faux pas, and shows, you don't write scripts to where two people are talking over each other, but they do that on purpose in things like Bob's Burgers. So it just feels like something that was inadvertent, not on purpose, but it serves to, make something more relatable. It was just decades ahead of its time in practice, but even though it wasn't intentional. You feel that?
I haven't seen much of Bob's Burgers, for sure.
Right.
Sorry, I'm following in my own time.
So this docudrama was filmed during the 50th anniversary of Doctor.
13, yes, 50th
in
anniversary.
2013. How much of the original sets or original costumes did they use, do you think?
Well, they used reproductions.
So you don't think they had any of the originals, like the Dalek costumes? Do you think any of those were originals?
If anything was surviving, it was the Daleks.
The Dalek costume.
But the costumes from all the other stories, like the
hat and the cloak that he's wearing to represent Hartnell.
Right, or the French Revolution,
TARDIS
all that,
set.
or the Web Planet bees. I mean, no, it's probably reproductions.
They just remade those costumes.
If anything so says, it was the Daleks.
Okay, so that was my question. I was hoping maybe we got to see some of the original costumes in color.
But we saw Susan.
We did.
Susan was there.
So talk about
the teacher, the female teacher in that one scene. Oh, the original Susan. That was awesome.
So we had the actress that played the original Susan come back as sort of an homage. A cameo. She was playing a school teacher. So she wasn't playing herself, obviously, because she was much older.
She can't. Yeah, she's too much older.
But she came back playing a school teacher in the park where all these children who were culturally impacted by Hartnell playing Doctor Who, asking for his signature, his autograph.
Awesome.
And he's having fun. He's playing with the kids. He's going, "Oh no, it's the Daleks! Run, exterminate!" It's really heartwarming. There are a lot of touching scenes. You have
a lot of them.
Verity Lambert hanging out with Hussein, just being shoulders to lean on. We have Verity Lambert encouraging Hartnell because he's had this self-identity, his struggle, and his fight against being typecast as this grumpy old person, and him campaigning to be more of a avuncular, soft, twinkling character.
At the same time, he's aging and he's problematic, and
he's having trouble memorizing his lines.
Yeah.
He's saying, "I'm not comfortable with this," and Hussein's like, I'm scared too.
All of us eventually, My mother, my grandmother. Seriously, it happens to all of us eventually.
So, we have this one scene where Hartnell is accepting the fact that all of the original cast are gone, his original companions are gone, the showrunners are gone.
Verity's gone,
and
Hussein's gone.
He says, "Why must things change?" And it's this fight we have with...
he does it while Verity's living.
Rose-tinted goggles. Yeah, this nostalgia we have for the past, and a resistance to accept the future. And I experience that myself when I'm looking over old things that I should throw out, just things that are so old that they're trash, and they just bring back memories, and it's like, this isn't functional anymore, but it's in this box in the garage because it reminds me of being a child. I should throw it out, but I can't because I'm too nostalgic. And you just have this moment of solace where you just ask yourself, why did things change? And you have those moments when you're hanging out with friends you haven't been with in a few years, and they go, I missed you. And it's like, well, I'm just the same old me. It's like you strive not to change as the world is changing around you.
So most people don't like change.
Yeah, and this
It happens anyway.
This docudrama, the way I'm talking about it, it seems like every other scene was dramatic and emotional, but really it was so well paced that just it really hit you. They really paced the character development, and it's a true story. They really well paced the comedy and the sobering emotional things, and we're emotionally attached to this because we've seen the original Doctor Who episodes, and we've watched through Hartnell's portrayal of the Doctor, and so there's this sort of emotional attachment we have to seeing this recreation of what it was like behind the scenes. To which that brings me to my last my last impression of watching this movie was we had William Hartnell in the TARDIS for the last time, and he sees Matt Smith, the 10th Doctor. Talk to us about that. What's the significance of William Hartnell shooting his last scene in the TARDIS where Patrick Troughton's about to take over the role of Doctor Who, and you have Hartnell looking at Matt Smith, who is 2013. The 11th Doctor. It's sort of like him looking into the future.
Right, he's looking into the future. He's seeing the show, that the character, that everything will go on, even unto the 11th Doctor, who is many, many years hence, 46 years hence at that point.
Yeah.
And because Matt Smith is the 11th Doctor, is there at the 50th anniversary for which this docudrama was made. It's just a sort of things will go on moment, you know?
Right, yeah. To me, it meant that as everyone was moving on with their lives, as that things were changing, that was William Hartnell, who was like the gruffer, harder, more old school person. It was him who didn't want to move on from this role because he was so attached to the kids and everyone it impacted. That was William Hartnell, the last one of the original cast to leave the show. That was him finally accepting the fact that, Doctor Who as a cultural thing was bigger than all of us, bigger than any one person, bigger than the original cast, and that was his moment of accepting that, you have to pass the torch to the next generation. That was him not only passing the torch to Patrick Troughton, but him realizing that, this show for the kids, it's not only the kids in this generation, but it's just this huge cultural phenomenon that's just gonna go on. And his moment of realization that, yeah, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. You don't like change, but change is necessary, and it's good for the future and the future generations, because you have to grow and let go so that others may experience the same things that you have.
Yeah, but it's such a bittersweet moment.
It's a bittersweet moment. It's sad, and it's sweet, and it's cute, and it's emotional. My very last question was, when it's talking about, the lives of the people in this docudrama, so-and-so went on to do so-and-so, it mentioned that William Hartnell, at the twilight years of his life, only went on to secure a couple other roles after playing Doctor Who. What were those roles after he played Doctor Who? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Me neither. Probably another military person.
He was always the military guy after Carry On Sergeant.
He's this person who had aged beyond his years to where he still had this mindset of, I'm a working man, I'm providing for my family, even though his wife recognized that you should slow down. You should retire." And he wasn't ready to accept.
Because his medical doctor told him to, yeah.
Yeah, he's having some medical problems.
He was only in his late 50s.
Yeah.
But World War II was hard on a lot of people.
Hard generation. What do you think about the old adage that hard times make strong men make easy times, easy times make soft men make hard times, and it's this sort of looping cycle.
I can see that.
Yeah. I feel like there's some truth to that. At the same time, being on the soft end of things, I like to say that those people are just being old coots saying that, "Oh, I had it harder than you."
Well,
so
they do and they did.
They did.
Yeah.
They did and they didn't. There's truth to it.
Alright. Any other questions?
No, that sums up all of my notes and my thoughts.
Okay, so
anything else you'd like to add?
see you next week.
We'll see you next week. What are we watching next week? It's I do.
The Daleks.
Yeah, we watch the Day of the Daleks. Next time is the Curse of Paladon. Paladon. How do you pronounce that? Paladon. Next time, the Curse of Paladon. We'll see you next week. The week after next, we'll be on vacation.
Skipping, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you next week and the week after the week after next.
Yeah, something like that.
Makes sense.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
I don't think we have the rights to that.
It's a remix. It's an a cappella version.